So I'm making the mast partner here for Coastal Queen. And as you can see, we have a hole cut out in the deck. This hole is 13 inches by 13 inches square. The mast that's going to go through it is 10 inches. So that gives us space all around the mast partner to add wedges, which is a typical way of keeping a mast in place. But a mast is obviously a circle shape and a cylinder, and this hole is square. So I'm adding these oak blocks to turn this square into a rectangle. They fit in the corners, and once we add 4 of them to each corner, that creates the octagon that we're going for. This mast partner isn't square exactly to the deck because the mast is plumb off the keel, so we had to account for that with these bevels fore and aft. So I've left the blocks long because I know they fit in the corners here, and then I can just simply cut the bottom and the top off, and that creates the block at the right angle that we need it to be. I remade the mast step for Coastal Queen to pretty much the same specs as the old mast step. It's just new wood. I've through bolted it together, and that, you know, this is a giant piece of oak, so that helps keep the oak together and keep it from splitting. So this mast step is used with quarter sawn white oak, so the grain runs vertical to the piece, which is really stable. You know, having the grain run up and down like that keeps the chances of this warping pretty low. So the mast of the mast step is a mortise and tenon joint. The bottom of the mast is the tenon, and inside the mast step is the mortise. So they get connected like so. And we've left this long to adjust the rake of the mast. Rake means the angle at which the mast sits. So we have 4 inches of play down here. So right here is plumb, straight up and down, square to the keel. If we slide it forward just 4 inches, that changes the rake of the mast, bringing the top of the mast aft. Once they launch this boat, they expect the bow, once she's floating, to go up. So this gives us an opportunity to change the angle of the mast, so it's plumb with the rest of the boat. So the opening will be 13 by 13 in an octagon shape, and we want a little extra room between the mast partner and the mast. That way we can use wedges to pound custom-made wedges into this area to lock the mast into place.
When Coastal Queen first showed up to us, we obviously unstepped her rigs. The main and mizzen were not in the greatest condition, and they were single telephone poles of lumber. So we moved it around the yard here and took 15 guys to load it onto a trailer to ship it down to Schell Custom Boatworks. And they used that as a template to build a new rig, build a new main and mizzen mast for the boat.
The mast is made from 8 staves. The glue-up process was a little more complicated than usual. We did it in 2 parts. So we assembled the entire mast, but only put glue on half the joints. Once that was cured, we popped it apart, and then we were able to work internally on the mast and lay out all the electrical chases and make sure that was all secured properly within the mast.
Oh, that.
The mast for the Coastal Queen is all glued up right now, and we're going from 8 sides to 16 sides, 32, and so on until basically we're round. So we're in that process right now.
We used the power plane to get it
We marked it, laid out all the lines, marked it down, planed it down with a power plane, and then just cleaned it up a little bit with the hand planes. The pencil marks are still roughly here from when it was drawn out at 32 sides, so that sort of guides me on where I gotta get to.
This is Dan's first mast. Dan is an extremely talented carpenter. Anybody would be lucky to have a carpenter like him, and he's just one of those guys that can figure anything out.
What does Dan think of boats?
Dan? Yeah, Dan, he doesn't really like boats that much.
Oh, I worked on the road department, and then I hurt my back and thought, oh yeah, I'll work on, a friend of mine was doing some boat work, so all right, I can do that. That's like a little more finesse than hauling a jackhammer around. I got into that. I worked on boats for a while and then did kitchens and baths. And
Dan likes wood. He's a wood guy. He's a woodworker. He loves to build things out of wood. And it can be a boat, it can be kitchen cabinets, it can be furniture. Dan is just a woodworker and he's amazing at it.
And the final step is to sand it completely round. And with that, we use a homemade sanding drum and a sanding belt just turned inside out, and just up and down the mast, roll it over, up and down the mast, and we do that again and again until it's completely round. And from there, it's 8, 10, 12, or 20 coats of varnish, whatever it takes to get it right. And then it's sent off to deRouville's boat shop, where George Schuld will design and build the hardware.
So other than your bench projects that you're working on, your dovetails and the Carlin notches and all that, are there actually boats in the shop at this point being worked on?
Yeah, there's boats from last year's classes that built, and they're in the process of being built. There's a big 30-foot lobster boat being built right now.
Drew started school a couple weeks ago and he's doing really well. So far he's enjoying it. And you know, I've spoken to him and we Zoom back and forth now and again. And it's great to hear him tell me, you know, what he's working on, because it's the same thing I was doing 30 years ago when I was there.
So they're working and finishing up projects from last year and, you know, helping out.
That's a great idea. That little internship is probably like, you could learn so much after you're done with your schooling, and like an internship like that, you're just fully doing boat work, right?
Yeah, because you're just working and you're done with school, so.
The experience I had out at the Northwest School Wooden Boat Building was just an awesome experience. It was not only an incredible place to be, but it really, truly is a mecca for wooden boat building. And outside of the school, there's so much more going on in the wooden boat world. So you could really learn a lot just from being there.
The very end of the boom, and then to a dead end here. They're basically the same type of thing in that position.
So we received the newly built mast and boom for the Coastal Queen from Pete Schell's boat shop up in North Jersey. And George is tasked with creating the necessary hardware to attach the rigging, which he'll be creating out of silicon bronze.
So with the Coastal Queen, by its original intention, it had a mast up forward and a large deck. So you'd have a tall mast, and then you have a rigging boom that would come out at a pretty casual angle, maybe 45 degrees. and that would pivot out to lift the load, bring it in to drop it down. And that you'd have a lot of room behind the mast. But now what we have is we need to be able to put a heavy weight directly behind the mast, because that's all the room we have. So what we do is, instead of that spar being way down here, we have to bring it way up here. So to do that, that lifting point has to be directly above where the live load's gonna be. We're very close to it. So we have to have a rigging that's gonna handle and not bind up at that steep angle. And as it's turning, it can't twist around and get bound up. Because the higher it is, the more it wants to get twisted around. And then once it turns, then it has to be lowered to the point where you can drop something off the boat, either onto the dock or, you know, or literally a boat into the water. So there's several processes that kind of have to happen all at the same time, and nothing can bind up, and all that rigging is not allowed to get caught on any of the hardware and all of the parts that sit around. So at the top of the mast, I'll be making new fittings with my cardboard aided and foam design mock-ups. And let's see, that will look somewhat like this. We have 2 shrouds. The forward end is a forestay. We've got a throat halyard. We've got the lower peak halyard block. It'll go like this. This is the upper peak halyard block. Obviously the blocks are much, much larger. That's why they have to stand off so far, so we don't hit the spar. Based on the spars, based on the hardware and the rigging and everything that's available, we want to be able to pull up a significant amount of weight, far more than a bushel of oysters or, you know, baskets of oranges or something. So we need to make sure everything's up to snuff. Every single piece of hardware, the spar itself, the rigging, the bronze, all of the geometry has to work to be able to haul something quite heavy on boat and put it down and do it safely.
But what do you think of the boat?
I mean, I like the boat as much as anything else because Peter loves the boat.
Yeah.
That's really the heart of it. Is it a cool boat? Yeah, it's a cool boat.
Yeah.
Is it my thing? I don't know. I wouldn't know what to do with something like that.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating to work on. And the challenges presented to Pete, challenges presented to me, the rigging people, certainly McMillans with all the work they're doing. That's amazing. And to be able to work on a boat like this is an honor. And it's an honor for me, and I'm sure it's an honor for everyone else to be able to work on something like this.